Hey, are you struggling to get your business noticed? Do you think PR is just for big brands? Well, think again. Join me as I talk with Reena Goodwin, founder of Factor PR, to break down why PR is a marketing must have and how small businesses can use it to grow. She'll also spill the tea on why she traded working in the music industry to work with wellness brands. I love sitting down with my peers, and my conversation with Reena is long overdue. So let's get started. Welcome to Brand for Good, the show for purpose driven leaders who want to build timeless brands and create sustainable impact. I'm Lorraine Sugart, former PR and marketing executive turned founder of the disruptive agency Prosper for Purpose. I've worked with some of the world's most beloved brands, and I'm here to help you elevate your brand identity, visibility, influence, and impact. Are you ready to brand for good? Let's go. So welcome, Reena Goodwin, to Brand for Good. I'm really excited to have you here today and have this conversation.
I am so thrilled, Lorraine. Thank you so much. It's an honor.
So you and I kind of knew about each other, ran into each other at a few things along the way, but didn't really get to know each other when you were living here in Cleveland. So I feel like this is a great opportunity to kind of have a virtual coffee with you and ask the questions that I would normally ask if we were sitting down. So to start with that, how do you go from doing PR for Beyoncé and recording artists to working with mainstream type brands, although they're not necessarily, but it's kind of a shift, right, from one industry to the other. Can you talk a little bit about where you came from and how you chose to focus where you're focusing now?
Absolutely. I would be happy to. So, my background, even going before my experience working in marketing in the music industry, was actually in journalism. That is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I went to journalism school. I've always had this passion for storytelling. And I just really lucked out at the end of college, getting a full time job in the marketing department at Columbia Records. And though while I wasn't doing PR directly for these artists, I was sort of project managing all of the things for, artists like Beyoncé, the Jonas Brothers, Billy Joel, Celine Dion, some of the biggest stars on the record label, managing everything from their marketing budget, working with their A&R teams, their publicity teams, you name it. And for me at the time, it was truly, truly a dream job. I mean, I even look back at that and I was like, wow, those days were good. Like, those are really great. But, that being said, it was a bit of a different time. And at the time, the music industry really struggled with things like digital streaming. Napster was still
Oh,
wreaking
wow.
havoc on the new music
Yeah.
industry, and eventually I ended up losing my job. I was laid off with my boss and most of our marketing team, and I thought the sky was falling. I tried very desperately to get another job, but during the Great Recession proved to be difficult until I landed a really incredible role at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is what brought me to Cleveland. So moving from New York, which is where I thought, I would spend the rest of my life, to Cleveland, Ohio, which wasn't too far from home of where I live now in Cincinnati. And that's really where my PR experience came to be. I absolutely loved the job. Again, it was still the music industry,
Right.
but it was also a nonprofit institution. I would say my next dream job. And I absolutely loved it. But, fast forward, several years after that, I really started to shift what I wanted just in terms out of life. I decided that I really, really loved public relations. And though I love the music industry, it was really starting to take a toll on me. Music industry, it's entertainment, right? So there's late
Right.
nights. There were days that I was literally working 20 hours a day. I kid you not, that I was at work for 20 hours. And over time, I ended up getting married, became a mom. It was just a lot for me.
So the
PR
music
already.
industry and motherhood don't quite mesh up too well, do they?
It's tough. They say it takes a village, but I just didn't have a village at the time. And I've always been really, really interested in wellness. I feel like I've always been someone who has tried to take really good care of myself. And I just decided I can be a music fan and really devote my life to working with brands that are really trying to make the world a better place, just in terms of whether it be various wellness practices, things like that. And that I could really start to work more in my community versus working with kind of like entertainment entities and so forth. So, yeah, I started Factor PR as a side hustle. And then
Interesting.
eventually, after the birth of my first daughter, I decided to go full time with it. And here we are today.
That's great. And when did you start Factor? How old is your agency now?
Yeah, so I officially secured the name in 2016, but I did not start going full time with it until 2018. So
Okay.
we've technically been around 9 years, but we've really only been, I mean, my goodness, we didn't even hire our first full time person until 2021. So I guess that's when we really became an agency.
Yeah,
So
that's so
it's,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it's only been like 4 years.
Wow, that is great. And you
Yeah.
have a team now and you have offices in different locations.
Oh, yes. So after COVID, or I should say during COVID, rather, we had a physical office space in Ohio City, which is just right outside of downtown Cleveland. We released the office space, of course, during COVID
Right.
and have really been virtual ever since then. So most of our team is concentrated in Ohio. We are the only PR agency in the state of Ohio that does what we do, which is really a focus on beauty, home, and wellness, media relations, social media, and so forth.
Right.
And, we do also have team members that are kind of more spread out across the United States as well too, but our home is really here in the state of Ohio. Just until this past year, most of our clients were also outside of the state, but have brought in kind of more local clients looking for national PR exposure too.
That's really interesting. I had a similar experience when I started my agency. Actually, initially, the first year, they were almost all local. And then it was probably 6, 7 years before we had more than one state of Ohio type client. They were everywhere. So it does seem sometimes cyclical
Yeah.
too, the client makeup.
That is so true. Now that you mention it, it was the same with us. All were local and then kind of spread out to all across the country and then sort of coming back to local. And I think a lot of that honestly has truly been deliberate as well too. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot, I don't know, I think it's a lot savvier in terms of positioning to say we're the only ones that do this here in
Right.
your community versus one of 500 across the world that it's just a lot easier of a sell, quite honestly, and it's also nice to be able to see people in person once in a while as well too, I won't lie.
I totally agree. I think that's the nice thing about having clients that you can drive to and spend time with. So I'm curious about how you feel your background in journalism shaped your approach to PR and branding.
Ooh, that is such a great question. Do I think that you need a background in journalism to do PR? No, I don't. I think if anything though, what it did sort of support me with is just an understanding of how the media works. I think that, so much of what we do, especially in PR, is on the media relations side of things. That's really our bread and butter at Factor PR is
Right.
media relations. So having that experience and that education just around like what is the purpose of the media? How does a newsroom work? Things along those lines, how a news article is structured. All of those things I think helped us really get our footing just in terms of working backwards from what that end result looks like, right? Like I know how to
Right.
formulate a pitch that's going to be attractive to a journalist because I know ultimately what the story is going to look like that they want to write. So making sure that those various components are in there. So I think that it's helpful, but I won't lie. I mean, like when I was in journalism school, I wrote obituaries. Like in terms of like just learning it's not like I learned how to do like lifestyle writing. It was like, oh no, this is all hard news. Certainly the media landscape has changed since my college
Uh,
days, but that's why I really think that so much of it comes down to experience and having relationships with journalists that you're not afraid to ask, like, how do you want to work with us? And of course, adjust accordingly.
and that's one of the benefits of niching. Would you
Mhm.
agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that arguably, Lorraine, like if you know how to do PR, I mean, you could do PR for a door if you had to. Like, it's like I can technically do PR for anything A, I don't want to. B
Right.
is like, it's so hard to have relationships with everyone, right? And especially in
Right.
this day and age where consumers are savvier than ever, clients are more demanding than ever. I, like many service providers, like I want to over deliver, right? And
Right.
so, sure, yeah, I can take X project, but we're niche intentionally because that is just not just where our skills and expertise lie. That's, I feel very confident taking on a client and, of course, helping them achieve their goals versus, just kind of like spinning our wheels and taking anything that comes by. So for me, niching down is extremely strategic. It plays into our personal strengths, but our professional strengths as well, too.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you. Journalism is about storytelling, and PR is about storytelling, and branding actually starts with a
Mhm.
good story as well. So, how do you help your clients kind of excavate and tell a compelling story that helps them stand out in the market?
Oh, well, Lorraine, since you mentioned brand, that is step one always. Like PR can and should ideally be at the table when you are thinking
Right.
about, building a business or rebranding or anything, right? Because really the function of public relations is to protect the brand, elevate the brand, right? Whereas the purpose of brand, it comes before that. It's like the mission, the vision, who we are as a company. So if we don't have that foundation secure, it really makes the PR side of things very cloudy, so to speak. So it's not like I'm turning down clients left and right or anything like that, but if you don't have a strong brand, or if
Right.
you need a rebrand or things along those lines, I will, just very transparently with potential clients say, like, I think you need to really nail down the brand first. Because as PR professionals, we're there to really carry the torch for them, right? And become ambassadors. But serving as an extension of the team, I think it's so vitally important that there is like a really, really clear understanding of the brand so that we also know what are the stories that will help support that brand's mission and vision. It's not always what the founders think it is, right? It's
Right.
more along the lines in PR, like you are meeting consumers or businesses, depending upon it's B2B or B2C, but let's say meeting consumers and then meeting the brand halfway and finding that sweet spot to be able to obviously satisfy the needs of the brand, again, protect and elevate their reputation while also serving their audience as well too. So it all starts with brand. And so I love that you asked that question because it's one that I think people are like, let's just like cut to the chase. I'm like, are you building a business or are you building a brand? And people kind of
Right.
confuse the two, right? And so always I think asking the right questions up front kind of help determine not just what outcomes you want, but ultimately what outputs are going to help you meet those outcomes too.
Right. 100%. I love that answer. That's how we work with clients as well. If they don't have a articulated market position and brand story, then what are we going to elevate? What are we going to promote? Correct? You have to have that basic foundation and have it really buttoned up. Just like you
Mm,
said, we're the only agency in Ohio that has these areas of specialization. We want our clients to have a clear position as well so that we can amplify it. Not that it's never tweaked along the way, but you have to have something to start with.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, are there any recent campaigns or projects that you've worked on that you're especially proud of?
Oh my goodness. There are so many. 2024 was such an interesting year. And I've talked to other agency owners about that as well. I'm sure you've got some experiences to share. But, just in general, I feel like what the year really offered for us at Factor PR is a lot of clarity, just in terms of really where we want to niche down even further, believe it or not. So I feel like we're pretty niche, but I feel also that we're not niche enough. And I think that, as a business owner too, I often myself speaking about brand challenge myself with our own positioning as well too. And so really what that has led to is just in terms of like successful campaigns, our most successful campaigns by far are those that we have worked with experts. And I think the big reason is that, as we know, experts just lend themselves a lot better to PR exposure versus
Yes.
products because experts, people tell stories. Products do not tell stories. And the product space is becoming increasingly pay to play and increasingly
Mm,
competitive. And so that has really been not just a struggle for our clients, but a pivot in our own messaging to potential clients as well too, was like what worked 2 years ago in public
right.
relations supporting a product-based business does not work any longer. And so if you want media coverage, for example, it's different, right? Like we certainly rely on spokespeople and affiliates and yes, sometimes even a little bit of pay to play, right? Like just in terms of the overall investment of an organization on the product based side is becoming greater because of the demands on the consumer side, right? And the
Right.
expectations ultimately from consumers. So that being said, our most successful campaigns circulated around those that provide a service versus a product. Those campaigns, on the flip side, our most successful campaign last year was a product-based business.
Interesting.
Yes. And the key there had to do with retail distribution too.
Mm,
So, all that being said, we're getting a lot smarter. I feel like in terms of what is working, I won't say what works because, in 2 months, when
what's
this
working
episode does,
today?
yes, what's working today is, it really changes client per client. But overall, in terms of what I find successful, right, which is client satisfaction over delivering for a client, as well as team satisfaction, is when we get to work with and represent experts in their field. So, wellness experts, healthcare experts, those are really our bread and butter at Factor PR.
I love that. I really think that's a valuable insight. We focus on service brands. I do know the product promotion area has vastly changed. Even service promotion has too. There's a lot more focus on thought leadership and
Mhm.
having people step from behind the brand. And so I think that you really have to be devoted to your craft, which I know we both are, to be able to really watch the trends, watch what's working, and be able to adapt your own strategies along the way.
Amen to that. Yes.
Yeah. So, talk a little now about how you've built your personal brand. So, talking about experts. So, you are an expert and an only. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how you think you leading Factor PR as the owner, but also the face of the brand, has really helped you elevate.
Oh, I think about this question a lot. And I hope as the founder and the owner, I'm helping to elevate the business. But, Factor is a small agency. I started the agency and I have a team, but, in terms of client relationships start with me and they end with me. Right. And
Mhm.
I don't run an agency where like I bring in a new client and I disappear. Like
Right.
I'm very much still a part of the team. I might not be the one like pitching you or doing your
Mhm.
social, but
Mhm.
I sort of like set the bar and I have an excellent team. They meet or exceed that bar. And as I often share with my team, that bar is always going higher. So that's just
Right.
in terms of me running a business, like, once we reach good enough, it's like, all right, now we're going better. Right. And it's just
Right.
always setting that bar for the team, but also for our clients as well too. And I think one of the things that I really, really strive to do for not just the team, but for our clients and even for our community is empower them. That's a word that when we redid our website last year, I really wanted to be part of our own rebrand. And that is about empowering our clients because
Yes.
PR, as I'm sure you know, Lorraine, like it is, when you think about like paid media, earned media, shared, owned,
Mhm.
AI, whatever, Earned seems to be the most mysterious for brands, especially for startups. Like we work with a lot and they're just like, why do I need this? Like, or like it's certainly in terms of ROI, it's going to be the slowest, the hardest to measure.
Right.
Like they're just like, are you selling me like snake oil? Like, what are you doing here? And I'm like,
Interesting. Yeah.
no. And
Yeah,
I find that education, like everything, knowledge is power. And
it
so
is.
I position PR to our clients from the get go as it's a non negotiable. As a founder, you have to know how to advocate for your business. Like, you cannot afford to not have good PR for your business, right? And like really empower them with not just that, little tidbit I just shared, but like, what is that? What does PR do for your business? And really bring them along on that journey, right? Like, we're helping elevate you as the founder in thought leadership positioning, right? To help advocate for your brand. And people think that, like, oh, I'm just going to like hire an agency and like wipe my hands clean and like they do all the work. I'm
Yes.
like, you need to be hands on when it comes to PR. This isn't like set it and forget it, right? Like, this is
Yes.
about building a brand, not just building a business. And so, in terms of like really trying to educate and empower, our current clients, our potential clients, I do my best to try to leverage various channels, right? Like my own kind of thought leadership. So, whether that's through our Instagram, through my LinkedIn, our email newsletter, I just myself just started a podcast a few weeks
I know
ago.
you did. I'm so excited for you.
And so to me, it's super, super important, right? Especially as a service provider, that like we understand, like, yes, at the end of the day, we're selling a result, but what you're buying is me, my team, like the people that you work with. And I really think just in terms of, a trend that we saw happen in 2024 for sure, and then going into the new year is really just like peeling back the curtain a little bit and like really bringing people into this world. Like for me, it's PR. I want to shine a light on how to leverage public relations to grow your brand, right? Because especially in this day and age where I think a lot of emphasis is on social media marketing and things like that, which
Yes.
are great for building an audience. And even at Factor, we consider social media to be part of our public relations strategy for our clients. It's just important to know that like you don't own your audience on TikTok. You do not own your
Right.
audience on Instagram, right? So many businesses are putting their eggs in one basket and not thinking about like these other channels, like a blog or a podcast, or borrowing an audience from another, like, a Vogue or an Allure or whatever that looks like, to help
Right.
build their own. And so, yeah, that's just where I feel like I can come in and help, not again, just you know, push my brand and my agenda, but be really a resource. And of course, too, right? If someone listens and they're like, do it for me, we have an option where you can work with the agency on a done for you basis, right?
Right.
Or we also have an option where maybe you see the value, like something that I've said is rung true, but you're still in your early stages and maybe you can't afford an agency. We have a done with you service as well. So empowering people by also, I think, giving them options, because in this day and age, no, we're not selling you snake oil. There's many different ways to grow a business. PR, I think, is always a non-negotiable, but there's not necessarily one tried and true way and that's it. I think for a long time that felt like the case, but I truly like social media changed the game where people are bringing in the power of media into their own hands as well too. So we're leaning into that, but also offering, I try to offer guidance just as far as like how to really get the most juice out of the squeeze out of your efforts too.
I love that there's another voice shining the light on PR, what it is, what it isn't, and what it can do to help elevate brands. So I think that's really great. And do you want to talk for a minute about your program? Because that's something we talked about right before we started recording.
Oh, yeah, sure. And thank you for that invitation. So, yeah, at Factor PR, like I mentioned, there's two ways that we work with our clients. So we have our kind of done for you PR services. We do everything with you, meaning like you are the spokesperson. We're not doing the interviews, but we represent your brand, we pitch, all of that good stuff. And that's really agency led. That being said, we also work with clients on a done with you basis. So we have done for you at Factor and then done with you at the DIY PR project. And so this is really a phenomenally valuable asset for small business owners who want to procure their own publicity. So that is important to note. We're at Factor PR, we're sharing all of the tools and resources and actually educating you about
Right.
how to represent yourself in front of the media, but you are actually the one representing yourself, not the PR agency. And this is just, again, going back to educating founders, so important, right? Because what I also don't want to do is take on a very small business and bankrupt them, right? Like, so
Yeah. Oh,
also
no.
understanding, like I take on clients where I see myself almost like as an investor back in their business. Like, do I see potential? Can we get, I look for home run clients basically. But, that being said, there are also home run clients that just aren't ready for an agency. And lots of great brands kind of DIY'd their PR to start with. One that comes to mind is Hero Cosmetics. They DIY'd their PR until they were ready to onboard an agency. The brand just sold, I think, a year or two ago for like 600 million.
That's
Like
amazing. Yeah.
right? Like again, they understood the power of PR. They got the wheels greased by doing it on their own. The brand grew, and then they were able to obviously bring on an agency as well. So we're really proud to be able to extend that opportunity to brands that, again, it doesn't take up a ton of time. It's what you put into it. So if you only have an hour a week to watch a quick video and put together a pitch and send it to 3 people on your list, it's all about building momentum. I often say some PR is better than no PR, right? So like
Yes.
starting somewhere is going to be more beneficial than just, starting nowhere. And that's really where the program was born. I hate turning down people's dreams,
I
so to speak, but
know.
like have this like, you know what? Plan A, like let's make that our goal for next year. Right now, I've got a really great runner up plan B that
Yeah.
will help build that momentum for your business. So it's
And that's the nice thing, to give
yeah,
them something rather than nothing.
exactly. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, like those of us that work in PR, right? Like this job is not easy. Like you have to have a lot of passion for it. And
Yeah.
especially like me coming from the nonprofit world, it's like I want to help everyone, but I
Yes.
don't necessarily, I can't. I just can't. This is a
Right.
way that we can help more people without hurting the agency or biting off more than we can chew. Right. So, yeah, it's a passion project for sure, but absolutely check out DIY-PR.com.
Yeah, we'll have the link in the show notes as well as the link to your podcast. I have two more questions for you.
I would love to answer them.
The next question is, with the rise of AI, what traditional PR tactics do you think still hold strong? And which ones do you think are fading? So, how are you seeing, if you're yet seeing AI impact the PR space?
Oh, yes. I'm not going to lie. I lean into AI. I ask my team, I challenge them, I coach them on thoughtful AI leverage because I do think that there is something to be said, especially in our industry, too, about working smarter, not necessarily harder. So
Yes.
the things that we think that I don't know if it's necessarily going to replace a lot in public relations, but I think that AI is phenomenally helpful for thought starting and brainstorming. So, AI can certainly, like in the terms of like Chat GPT, I think it can certainly turn around like a fantastic brainstorm session in less than 5 minutes, right? But it's
Mhm.
still going to take a professional or someone who is guided by the motive of a particular goal, in this case, a public relations goal, to be able to analyze not just what's a good idea, but an achievable outcome from those ideas, right? Because AI can just kind of spit something out and be like, this is so great, but you still need someone discerning to be able to say, like, this is
Yeah.
great and achievable, or
Right.
hey, this is a great starting place. This is how we can put a cherry on top and take it over the finish line. So I love AI for that. But I feel like where AI is just, it's not, I don't see it replacing this in my field anytime soon. Again, comes down to relationships. You just can't fake those. And I often tell people, like, yes, of course, we are a PR agency, but if I could really call us something, we are a relationship agency. People
Mhm.
come to public relations experts, right, for their relationships. And that is something you cannot buy in this case, right? Because we're not selling ads, and those have to be formed, in terms of like mutual, as far as like being mutually beneficial. So last month we did 25 virtual desk sides with top tier media. AI helped me book the meetings, but they could not replace me in those meetings.
Right.
And, like that is just, I feel like, people understandably so sometimes panic about AI, but I would rather, yes, I don't need a human being to necessarily book these meetings for me, but I need a human being to be in those meetings and speak on behalf of my clients, intelligently. Like, yes, AI all day, book the meetings. I want to use like my gifts to be able to represent my clients and get them coverage. So that's just a couple of examples where I feel like, okay, I think it truly is going to help us, whether or not it replaces a PR agency. There are people out there in this camp that think like, yeah, I don't need my PR agency to write the press release. I'll just use ChatGPT.
Ugh.
Great. All like if that's what you think PR is, let's
Yeah.
chat, because a press release is, it's just not cutting it anymore either. So
No, it's not, unless you have a big announcement, but you can't,
right,
just spray and play and think you're gonna get impact.
right.
So, we talked on how AI will impact PR, but what do you think as digital media continues to grow and all the pay for play and all the digital ads and all the clickbait now that is out in the world? What are your thoughts on how PR is going to morph and change, or will it over the next 3 to 5 years?
I don't know at this point. At this point, we're still sort of like listening to what we're, I don't know if listening is the right word, but just patiently watching what's going on. And I don't want to respond to those changes right now, but we are being very, very cognizant of it. So, for example, like on the pay to play front, especially for our product based businesses, these are conversations that we are often having with them, especially in a brand's infancy stage. So much is being guided by purchasing products to make commission. And that's how the publishers are compensated, since advertising
Yeah,
revenue is so, really falling behind for them. And so just having, I think, those transparent conversations about that. And again, remembering that PR is not one thing, right?
right.
It's media relations, it's social media, it's influencer, it's events, it's partnerships, like all of these things. And just really coming with an integrated strategy and openness to have an integrated strategy as well. That is one of the biggest reasons why I really believe in working backwards from a potential client's goal. I don't have a form on the website that says check the boxes which services you want. No, I want to get on
Right.
the phone and you tell me what is your goal and I will make a
Yes.
recommendation.
Yeah, reverse engineering, right?
Yes, reverse engineering. And so I certainly don't think that's going away, but
True.
we'll see.
We'll see. Reena Goodwin of Factor PR, it was so wonderful to talk with you today. I'm so glad we finally had our one-on-one time. Thank you so much. And where can people find you?
It was such a pleasure. Thank you, Lorraine. Always so good to connect. And you can find me at factorpr.com. It's FACTEURPR.com. And then also on Instagram at Factor PR. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And we will have all those links in the show notes. So scroll below and connect with Reena.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Brand for Good show. If you like what you heard, please hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and leave a review so other purpose-driven leaders can find this valuable content. To learn more about building a brand for good, please visit prosperforpurpose.com for more resources and information on all the ways you can work with us.